3 more minutes for some more people to join, and then we're ready to start. All right, so I think there will be some more people joining on the go, but my name is Krasimir and I'm the founder of Kikimora.io, a cybersecurity solution, of course, using AI to digest and analyze cybersecurity vulnerabilities to help companies with their cybersecurity posture and the end goal to be protected and to stay away from the malicious hackers. Which means that we need to carefully identify all the potential security gaps and weaknesses in the organization, and it's about remediating as many as possible because we can never fully eliminate the risk. That's impossible nowadays. So the point is to get to the point where we have that many vulnerabilities which will not be exploited by malicious hackers, just random hackers on the street. So we need to make the incentive very high. We need to make someone very, very focused and stimulated to compromise our company. The target is to go below that level. Um, Now, I'll show you the agentic solution that we created. It's based on AI agents because right now, without AI, I don't think that you can remediate the cybersecurity vulnerabilities. It's simply not possible nowadays. So let's take as an example an organization, and that's let's say a payment organization, an application like Revolut, TransferWise, or maybe your online banking system. That's how the organization looks like from the inside. That's the infrastructure of your payment solution provider. Of course, that's a very generic one. The real infrastructure is like much broader, contains a lot of devices, a lot of interconnected systems, but the main goal is you have multiple different interconnected systems and they have to communicate with each other. They have to provide you the payment services so that you can, of course, pay to merchants and other users. And there you see the internet on the picture. Internet is like a very small cloud in this point, but the main idea is everything which is behind internet somewhere out there, that's a local area network. That's a local network that belongs to an organization. And the goal here is to protect the organization. Now, as we're looking at this slide, can you just imagine what is the average number of potential vulnerabilities in a payments company with roughly 200 employees? Well, I'll give you a hint. The average number is 58,000 vulnerabilities. Out of those 58,000, our goal is to make the 5%, to identify the 5% most critical weaknesses and security gaps in your company so that you can remediate them before the malicious guys. The average day for exploitation is 58 days, which is great. We can wait for the patching lifecycle. However, the average day for exploitation by the malicious actors is 12 days. Now, if I'm a malicious hacker, what would be the first thing to do? I'm just facing an organization. I want to get as many as much information as possible for the company. I want to analyze their internet posture, email servers. I would like to collect as much information about the employees as possible, right? The weakest link in the organization is always the human being, the employees of the company. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to analyze the attack surface management of the company. And that means I will collect passively and actively information about their weaknesses, potential security gaps, issues with email servers, maybe some leaked passwords of the employees, maybe some of their usernames. I can use them to exploit the organization later to send malicious emails, phishing emails with some attachments. I can try and send them phishing websites. And basically, I would go to, for example, to Darknet, or there is third-party software solutions giving me this information for free. I don't even have to pay for this. So that's the first thing that you have to start doing if you are trying to protect your company, if you're trying to defend your infrastructure. Analyze the attack surface management of the organization, which usually starts with knowing your domain names, right? So, for example, let me try to analyze the attack surface management of my Kikimora website. I would simply go to Kikimora and I will type analyze kikimora.io. Now you can also do it with Shodan, for example, with third-party tools. It's not necessary to use Kikimora to identify the attack surface management. There is a lot of solutions on the market. Some of them are community-based. There is also enterprise solutions. It's up to you. You can decide what solution you want to use. In that case, I'm using Kikimora simply because Kikimora interconnects different AI agents, and the end goal is to connect all the different points. I need to analyze the attack surface, the secure code misconfigurations, operating system weaknesses, server issues, network security issues, and let's say issues with interconnectivity between the systems, the network segmentation. I would like to run, for example, a penetration test. It will give me some vulnerabilities and weaknesses as well. The end results need, at the end of the day, I would like to analyze all the vulnerabilities and to find out the 5% most critical weaknesses in my organization. Right, so what we see on the record right now, I see that Kikimora, to start with, there is a lot of subdomains related with my website. Each one of them corresponds to an IP address. After that, I can analyze the domain name and the email security records. So that would be the SPF and the DMARC records. They give me some very important information about the organizational posture, about the weaknesses visible from the internet. I also see some issues with SSL and TLS certificates. I can see my IP addresses, and then let's see, I would like to analyze the IP address, right? So that's the next thing I'm gonna do, because first of all, I start with domain analysis, and then I move to identifying issues and weaknesses on a server level. So after the analysis of the IP address, I see that there are some open ports. I see the service which is in use. I also see some exposure information, web focused exposure, which gives me information that if I have those web ports running, eventually I might be exposing a web server. It also gives me an increased attack surface because of the presence of those ports. And now, okay, I would like to analyze all the available ports. My goal is to identify as much information as possible from public sources. And I'm just getting full information about the ports, what port is used for what, and then this already gives me some information about the organization, about the attack exposure. Now, once I have this information, What else would I like to do? For example, let's go back to the presentation and see where we are at this point. I have already analyzed successfully for Kikimora expired certificates, the company website. I can go to darknet and I can expose employee credentials or some private sensitive information for the organization. This I can do on darknet. I saw the expired certificate, so that's pretty much everything that a malicious hacker is gonna see from internet facing hacker. He doesn't know anything about the organization. He's not inside the network, doesn't know about our systems, how are they connected, what is the business function of the assets, who is using them, and so on. So the next point, let's say I'm also already inside the organization, I'm a security officer and I am trying to protect the organization, or I'm a malicious guy and I'm already inside the network and I'm trying to expose as many vulnerabilities as possible. I start with network scanning. And network scanning gives me information about OS/infrastructure and network related vulnerabilities. This could be anything from the service related issues. I can see open ports and exposed hashing functions, for example. I can see potential CVEs that could be exploited in this organization, and that's another data set for me. First, I have the attack surface management, I have the public facing information, and now I'm using another tool, another solution like Qualys, Nessus, Rapid7, Akunetics. There is a lot of solutions on the market. You can identify a lot of weaknesses even with Nmap with scripts. And this gives me information about the OS/infrastructure related vulnerabilities. How can I do it? Of course, I'm going to use Kikimora in that case, but feel free to use any of the above mentioned solutions. Now, I'm trying to collect as much information as possible from different sources. At the end of the exercise, I will connect those different data sources into one single unified data point of truth. So let's see what are my IP addresses which I have already identified. Or maybe I can say what of my IP addresses are available for scanning, available for vulnerability scanning. Right, now I see that I have three subdomains. I see the IP addresses for each one of them. I see the organization, the hosting organization. One of them is hosted with Superhosting, the other two are hosted with Cloudflare. Cloudflare was not up and running yesterday. Most of you are familiar with the Cloudflare issues. There was a huge downtime. A lot of services were down because of this third-party risk. It wasn't a cyber attack, it was just a misconfiguration. However, at the end of the day, you are not able to use a lot of websites and web applications because Cloudflare was down. And then I see some potential vulnerabilities. Sets are available for network scanning. Now Kikimora performs the analysis for me, and that's the beauty of the AI agents. If I didn't have the AI agents, I would have to go to each one of those vulnerability scanning solutions, and I would have to manually configure vulnerability scans, collect the data, analyze, find remediations and recommendations for improvement, and apply the remediations. Now you can see that I'm actually doing this in about 2 minutes. Otherwise, it would take me like a couple of hours just to go to each one of those solutions to configure. Of course, I would need to obtain a lot of licenses, but the beauty of AI is that you can connect many different data sources and you can ask the AI agent to analyze the data for you. All right, so at this point in my infrastructure, I already have information about the public attack exposure, what the malicious hackers are going to view from internet, and I have completed a network scanning for my IT assets, for my IP addresses. The next step is the most important one. No vulnerability poses a risk without having the context. You cannot identify the risk if you don't know the context of the organization. Is it the same if I have the same vulnerability on the back office printer in my office, for example, and if I have the same cybersecurity vulnerability affecting my ERP system in the organization. Completely different. One of them, except for printing as many A4 papers as available, that's the only thing you can do. Or eventually, if you have like an internet connected printer, yes, then maybe if you exploit the printer, you can get access to the rest of the network, to the rest of the organization, but that's not very potential scenario, let's say. The other scenario, I'm exploiting the ERP system with the same vulnerability. I'm getting access to the company data, information about customers, deals, prospects, and so on. Pretty much all the business processes. So why is sourcing asset information so important? First of all, if I want to analyze the risk for the organization, I need to know where is the asset, what's the business function, who is the owner. At the end of the day, I need to assign the remediation steps to someone, right? So that means that I need to know who is the owner of the asset or who is the remediation owner. That would be the system administrator or the network security administrator or maybe the developer in the organization. If we're talking about web applications, then most probably a vulnerability related with the web application is going to remediate it by the developer in the company. So once I have all this information, I can already start assigning the vulnerabilities. I can already start working with this one. Now, what we used to do before AI, we were actually analyzing the IP addresses, the corresponding vulnerabilities. Then we had to go to Azure. We had to collect information about this asset and that asset and what's their business function. This information, just to collect this information, it takes so long. It takes like days and weeks just to get access to this information. What we can do with AI, with the help of AI agents to analyze the business context of the organization. Let's say I'm a fintech provider. As we said, I'm providing payment services to my customers. Most of my assets are hosted on GitHub. My code is hosted on GitHub. What I can do, I can go and I can say, can you please analyze my GitHub for me? And then Kikimora goes to GitHub. It collects information about the assets, what's their function, where are they, and so on. Of course, you can connect this one with AWS, with Azure, with yeah, a lot of different sources of information. You can connect it with CMDB systems. You can get the asset information from the CMDB systems. I can also collect information about my AWS infrastructure. And right now, Kikimora, the AI agent of Kikimora, goes to GitHub and it's already analyzing my code for security vulnerabilities. Right now, it's giving me the top 10 security vulnerabilities. As we see, some of them are critical, some of them are high. I see the rule name, I see the exact file and line, which is having the vulnerability so that I can go and fix it. I can go and remediate it now. We see a summary of the discovered critical, high, and of course, if there is medium vulnerabilities as well. We see that some of them are related with insecure randomness. We have some server-side request forgery, cross-site scripting, trivial vulnerabilities, very easy to discover if you have the right tools and the right access to your software code. All right, but what else? What can I do? Right now, I would like to summarize this information and I would like to create a project, for example. And this project needs to contain my vulnerabilities. I'm going to use it later, this information, to assign the vulnerabilities to someone. So, for example, I can create one project and assign the first five vulnerabilities in the project. Now, this would not be possible again without the help of AI. If it wasn't for AI, I have to manually go and configure a project. I have to maybe collect this information, put it in a beautiful Excel sheet, digest the information, sort it, filter it, and then go and introduce the information to my project management system. I would like to automate the process. It's 2025, AI is here. I have the agents, they can do it for me. Of course, they cannot do everything, but most of the automation they can do for me, which leaves me with a lot of time to actually analyze the vulnerabilities, to learn about cybersecurity, and to do something meaningful with my time, instead of just wasting time um, to assign vulnerabilities, to document them properly, and you know that's like trivial work. I don't have to bother with this one anymore. Um, all right, so at this point, Kikimora is trying to retrieve my user ID that's needed so that we can set the risk owner for the project. We're going to link the software vulnerabilities to a technical asset. Then we have a new project dedicated to GitHub vulnerability remediation, and we're going to assign the first 5 vulnerabilities from GitHub to the new project. Um, while this one is okay, I think we have it already. So right now we have it's already creating the assets for me. It's getting the authenticated users, listing all the assets, and checking what users have what users are already assigned to the assets, and if not, then it's going to assign them. All right. Now this one you can extend it to let's say you can connect 5 different data sources, or you can connect many different offline sources as well. If you have a local database with some information, you can create agents to connect this data source to the Kikimora interface. Of course, you can build agentic management system by yourself. You can use open source solutions as well. I'm showing you what we've done so far. However, I'm just giving you the perspective how you can manage 60,000 vulnerabilities in one single place, and how you can find the 5% most critical cybersecurity weaknesses using AI. Now, this will take a little, okay, it's already creating a new project. Now you see where this one goes. It's assigning the risk owner, the risk ID, and the new project is called GitHub Code Scanning Remediation. I'm using JuiceShop. JuiceShop is a vulnerable web application. We're using it for testing purposes. It's full with vulnerabilities, and that's the beauty. And right now, it's assigning the first 5 vulnerabilities to my user. Now, I'm gonna stop this one because it takes some time to assign the vulnerabilities. At the end of the exercise, you're gonna see all the vulnerabilities assigned to the corresponding project. However, what if I would like to analyze my AWS, for example? I told you that we can also connect the AI agents with Azure, with AWS. So let's see if I ask Kikimora to analyze my AWS infrastructure. That's also part of the asset information. You're collecting information about the asset. What's the function? What's the IP addresses? In which subnet or which virtual network the asset belongs? Mm, who is the latest user who interacted with the asset? You can pretty much collect all the information available for this asset. Right now, I'm going to AWS and I'm collecting information about my AC2 instances. Here is a full inventory. That's great. But can I go? Okay, what do we do now? Like I have the users, the IAM users, the AIM roles, multi-factor devices in use. I have one of them. I have root access keys present. That's some juicy information already. I can already use this information to help my cybersecurity posture, but it's also collecting information from AWS about the most critical cybersecurity findings for my organization. Can I go further? I would like to check my security groups, for example, for instance, and then I'm going to select one of the EC instances. All right, super cool. I can see the groups associated. I can see pretty much all the information which is now available in AWS. So again, coming back to AWS, if I have to go and manually analyze this information, I need to get access to my AWS interface. I need to know where to find this information, which means that most probably I need to have certified people or at least someone who knows how to use the cloud provider's interface to collect this information. And I'm pretty sure it's going to take them at least a couple of hours to go and collect the required information. And with the help of AI agents, again, I'm showing this with Kikimora, but you can do it with your own agents. You can collect this information in minutes rather than hours. Okay, well, at this point, I have already collected information about the public facing issues. I have started a network vulnerability scan. I've collected as much information as possible about my IP addresses and domains. I have the information from my cloud providers. I know who is the owners, what's the location of the assets. I can get all this information. Now, what would be the next step? Nobody thinks about the endpoints. What I see in most organizations, companies are running penetration tests and vulnerability scans, and they forget about the endpoints. However, the endpoints are usually the ones operated by users, which means that there is emails and there is phishing emails, and you can open an attachment, you can open an executable on your endpoint, and then game over. If your endpoint is exposed, for example, you know how the ransomware attacks work, they expose one endpoint and then they start spreading across the network, and they're trying to log the files on the rest of the systems in the same network. So imagine you have no endpoint security, you have no way to track the compliance posture of your endpoints, then game over. At some point, one of your endpoints is going to get exploited by malicious hackers. Without proper network segmentation, hackers can pivot to other subnets in your company and they can compromise whatever device they want. Of course, given that you have vulnerabilities. Now, what do you need to do with the endpoints? First of all, you need to have security controls, and that's so easy to implement. Security controls like the ones preventing execution of files, security controls enforcing um, um, BitLocker, for example, something to encrypt your hard drive so that if your laptop gets stolen, nobody can read the contents of the laptop. You can block websites. You can implement email filtering. You can patch your device. You can update the present software. These are endpoint security controls. That's called endpoint security hardening. There is a lot of things that you can do. You can improve the security of the servers. You can do it for the laptops. You can do it for Linux or Windows. Regardless of the operating system, you can improve the security of your endpoints. And that's what I see most companies are not doing it. And that's how, in most cases, malicious hackers are compromising your organization. Now, how can I analyze my endpoints? I'm going to use Kikimora, but you can do Windows Defender. You can maybe you have another management system to manage the endpoints. I'm going to check my endpoints. Now, in order to check the endpoints, very important, you need to have security agents deployed on the endpoints. If I have security agent, I can collect information about users, file system monitoring. I can get information about, for example, for Windows registries, or for Linux, I can get information about configuration files, what is allowed and what is not allowed in the system. And that's what the agent can give you. Also, you can configure security compliance, for example, against ISO 27001 or PCI DSS, and you can monitor the compliance of your endpoints if they comply with the regulations. Now, I've just requested Kikimora to provide me information about my endpoints, and she's giving me information about publicly exposed ones. Um, I see that I have 5 different endpoints. I see the corresponding IP addresses, agent ID, and at this point they are disconnected, which suggests that the systems are probably powered off. At this point, they're not available. Maybe the user is not working at this point. They already left the office and they turned off the system. It also gives me some critical observations. What else can I do with my endpoints? For example, I would like to analyze one of my endpoints. Let's say analyze endpoint healthy. I'm gonna use LT15 in that case. And now I would like to see what's the security posture for endpoint LT15. Now, with AI agents, I just query the agent, it goes and it collects the information for me. Without the agent, I have to navigate to Microsoft, to Azure, I have to go to, for example, Defender for endpoints, and I need to manually check this information for the endpoints. Now, for this endpoint, I also see that there is some recommendations, but first of all, I need to restore the connection with with this endpoint. But let's see what's the approved software. I can go and check what software is present on the target system, and I can compare with the predefined list of approved software for the asset, so that I can see if there is. Okay, I see that as part of my approved software list, I have Brave, KeePass, and Microsoft Word. However, is there list of software? Okay. Do I have or compare the installed software on my endpoints with the approved software list and tell me if I have an approved one. All right, so at this point, it tells me that my endpoints are disconnected, which means that I would not be able to collect this information. But once the systems are powered on, I can collect the information for the approved software versus the present software, and I can see what software is failing the compliance checks, which means that, for example, if tomorrow I have an ISO 27000 auditor, he wants me to demonstrate how I check for approved software on my target systems, I can just go and collect this information and I can show it to the auditor. All right, well, at this point, I've already collected information about my endpoints. We can also see what users we have present on the endpoints, what file systems, what files are available as well. This information is pretty important if you are managing the endpoints in your company. Okay, I was hoping I'm gonna show you the security hardening, but apparently without the systems being connected, that would not be possible. So what's the next thing you have to do? You know the public facing issues, you know the internal vulnerabilities, you know your assets, you know the security issues present on your endpoints. So now I'm coming back to the context. What what you want to do with the threat actor activity. You have, let's say, 50,000 vulnerabilities. How do you know which one needs to be remediated? How do you know which one poses greater risk to the organization? And the answer is you need to monitor the threat actor activity on internet. There is some enterprise solutions like Mandiant or SOCRadar. They're gonna give you this information, but also there is public sources where you can obtain this information. Now, what's the information I'm going to collect from the threat actor activity? I'm going to see what vulnerability from what has been actively exploited by malicious threat actors, by malicious APTs, from what country they originate. Maybe they come from, as you see, these are coming from China, Hong Kong, Philippines. There is another group, Andario, they come from Japan. They also have offices. I'm saying offices because they work just like enterprises. The APT groups, they work just like any other cybersecurity enterprise. So maybe they have locations in South Korea, they have in India. So I see that they are actively targeting, for example, those are targeting gambling, cryptocurrency, financial institutions. Now, if I'm a financial institution, I would like to know what CVEs, what security vulnerabilities are actively exploited in my industry. And that's something that I can collect from threat intelligence data sources like Mandiant and SOCRadar. But that's also something that I can do with the agents. I can ask the agent, hey, can you give me information about this CV? Is it actively exploited? How many times it was exploited in the fintech industry? Is there exploit available? Can you show me the exploits? Can you give me information if they exploit this kind of vulnerability in my country? Because not only I can see the target country, but I can also see what's the originating country, but I can also see what's the target country. So it might be an APT from North Korea, and they are actively exploiting vulnerabilities in Bulgaria. If I'm in Greece, am I concerned? Maybe because it's close to Bulgaria, but if I'm in the Nordics, if I'm in Norway, would I be concerned if this vulnerability has been exploited 1,000 times in Bulgaria? No, not really. It doesn't concern me. If it wasn't exploited in Norway, nobody is targeting Norwegian, um, uh, for example, public infrastructure companies, or let's say the public administration. When there is a war, for example, one country might attack another one and they will try to attack the public administration. That's how they do it. They collect information about the vulnerabilities and they are actively trying to exploit those vulnerabilities in the target country. So the same vulnerability in a target country actively exploited will pose a much greater risk compared to this vulnerability in a country where it's not actively exploited. Now, I have a full list of vulnerabilities already. And let's see if we can collect them. My vulnerabilities in a list. Now, this will take a while. I have quite a few assets, so I guess there will be a lot of vulnerabilities. All right, super. Now, what's that? I have 217 vulnerabilities just for those few assets of mine. Now, how do I know? You see, I have 67 vulnerabilities being open, 9 of them are critical, 20 of them are high, 21 medium, and so on. I see the full information, I can expand, I can see what's the affected asset, the IP address, the user of the asset, I can see the remediation steps, so how to remediate. Show me the remediation steps for the 5 most critical vulnerabilities. But now, once I have collected this information, somebody needs to remediate, right? Usually in the organization, this would be a DevOps expert or the developer or the sysadmin or the network security engineer. One of these guys, they have to fix it. Somebody needs to fix it. So how do we know what is to be fixed? And the answer is we need to assign the corresponding vulnerabilities to the right person in the organization. And that's something which is part of change management processes. I'm not going to wait for this one, but change management means that I have to assign there is KPIs. For example, for critical vulnerabilities, I need to define a KPI that I should have less than 5% of my vulnerabilities to be critical. I need to define a service level agreement, like critical vulnerabilities, they need to be remediated, for example, in 12 hours or 24 hours, or time to response. We need to define time to response. I need to have this um, someone to see the vulnerability, to analyze the vulnerability in 2 days, and that's very specific to the organization. That's still part of the context which I mentioned. So when you are identifying vulnerabilities, one of the most important the most important parts of the process is assign the vulnerability to someone and make sure this someone remediates the issue. Otherwise, you're just having a vulnerability detection. So what if you don't remediate it, someone is going to exploit it, someone will try to compromise the organization. And that's why change management is very important. Now, change management also means that I would like to notify the manager the C-level management in the organization. For example, I would like to create an AWS report. That's again with the help of the AI agents. Right now, the agents are going to AWS, they're collecting the information, and they will produce the report in HTML format. For example, I can specify the report to be in HTML format. Now, why is this important? Because the C-level management needs to track the KPIs. They need to know what critical vulnerabilities we have right now in the organization, how long they have been in the organization, who is the assigned remediation owner, who is bearing the risk, who is the risk owner. When is this vulnerability to be fixed? And is it already fixed? Maybe it's already fixed. So you have historical data that this vulnerability was already fixed. So that's information which I'm getting from the vulnerability data, from my CMDB systems, from Azure, from AWS, and so on. All right. Right now, I see that this one generated AWS security report, and it's giving me information that I have AWS security hub affected by this finding with severity high, recommendation enable security hub, and then I see this one for Amazon, for AAM root user, and so on. So I can pretty much use the agents also to create reports. It's very powerful. You can just spawn reports for the management, for example. Let's try something interesting. I'm not sure if that's gonna. So to which vulnerabilities am I assigned? I would like to see what's my vulnerabilities. What is it with me to fix in the organization? And that's very important part of the change management process. To which vulnerabilities am I assigned? Right now it's thinking. I'm the sysadmin in the organization. All right, first it's collecting the users. It's trying to get the full user list. Then it's checking the user roles, who is doing what in the organization, who is responsible for the different assets. Of course, this information you can go and do manually without the help of AI. And I can imagine how much time it's going to take for you to just go and manually get the users for each and every vulnerability, or to filter, to sort the vulnerabilities which are assigned to you. And right now we see that I have all these vulnerabilities assigned to me, which means that I'm the remediation owner. I have to remediate. Now, of course, if I provide time to resolve, then this will be listed here as well. That's part of the KPIs. And now, what's the most important information, right? We've built the context. By the way, let's try to generate HTML reports with my vulnerabilities. Let's see if that's gonna work. It's still listing the vulnerabilities. All right, create HTML report with my vulnerabilities. Let's see. That should be quite an easy job for the agents. But you can also connect it with a reporting, management reporting interface or a software solution, and you can instruct the agent to, actually you can tell the agent to instruct via API calls the remote system, the report management system. Okay, I didn't expect this sort of HTML report. But I have successfully generated HTML reports previously. Let's see if it's gonna work with PDF reports. Should be easier. Generate PDF reports with the top 5 vulnerabilities assigned to me. And in the meantime, I'm still waiting for the reports. Now we talked about the context, right? So when we started this exercise, I didn't know anything about my internet-facing issues, so I had to go to third-party sources like Shodan, Cycognito, and etc. I had to collect information about the public weaknesses. Then I had to go inside the network and configure vulnerability scans for the different subnets, for the different locations in my organization. For example, this could be like New York office and Sofia office. And then I'm running the network scans. I'm collecting information about the assets, who is doing what, who is the owner of the asset, what's the asset identifier, where is the asset located, and a lot of additional information. I have successfully analyzed the endpoints, the endpoint vulnerabilities and security posture, as well as identified the compliance status against ISO 27001, for example, or NIS2. And then we also collected information about our secure code weaknesses from GitHub. I also checked this. For this, we need either to ask the agent or to go to a third-party system and to collect the information about the threat actor activity. And now I already have the context, and I can uh, prioritize. I can say what is the risk for my organization and how I'm gonna do it. I'm going to apply a formula. Now, in my case, we have a proprietary Kikimora Smart Risk Score, which means that I'm considering the exposure of the asset hardening. I'm considering the average asset hardening for the organization. So let's say if I have 50 assets, I'm taking the average number of the security hardening for those 50 assets, and then I'm comparing my endpoint against the rest of the endpoints against the average number. I have also defined asset criticality, which means that I can manually define what are my most critical assets. One asset is important, the other one is not. The example with the printers and the ERP systems, for example. And then I have the EPSS base core. That's the threat intelligence, the threat intel activity on the internet. Based on the EPSS score, we can identify if hackers are actively exploiting vulnerabilities. EPSS score is publicly available. Everybody can go and check information about the EPSS score. Um, it's showing you the probability for this vulnerability to be exploited in your company. And then I also checked if my asset is exposed to internet. This is what I did with the attack surface management. And now that I have collected all this information, I can already prioritize and I can say those 5 vulnerabilities. If somebody is going to hack my company, it's going to be one of those vulnerabilities, most probably. There is the greatest potential for one of those to be exploited. A lot of people are uh, performing risk assessment based on the traditional CVSS scoring system. However, you can see that CVSS 6.8, sometimes depending on the organizational context, depending on the criticality of the assets, the exposure of the assets, and etc. Sometimes a CVSS with 6.0 can be much more critical compared to a critical CVSS 9 out of 10. So that's the context of the organization, and that's how we can monitor the risk in the organization. And that's the beauty of AI. I can literally collect all these, I can connect all these different data sources. What's that? It's been 50 minutes already. For 50 minutes, I have successfully identified the most critical cybersecurity issues with this organization. Thank you for the attention. Uh, I would love to connect and to continue the discussion. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can also reach out to the community version of Kikimora, available at agentic.kikimora.io. You can use it for free. You can identify your weaknesses. I would love to hear if you have some questions. Please drop them in the chat. And I hope it was interesting for you. All right, so there is already some questions. Monitor for anomalies or malicious activity inside the platform, for example, user extracting data, creating too many scans, and etc. Is it possible? What we can do with users at this point, we can see if the, the, the operating system registries have been modified by the user, if there are configuration files modified by the user, when they have been modified, by what user, and that's what we can see at this point. We can also see if if the system has administrative users present. So for example, if I'm a malicious user, I would like to do something, like to do some harm, I'm probably gonna create an administrative user on the Windows system or a root user on the Linux system, and I'm trying to create a backdoor, for example, to connect with the command and control server. So that's what I can see. At this point, it doesn't serve as a log collector, so you cannot see users exfiltrating data from the asset. However, with the AI agents, you can configure your own data source, and that's what you can start collecting information about the user logs, about the system logs, from the system logs about the user behavior. And by the way, that's something that we're currently working on. We are trying to establish user behavior analysis, which will identify users which are frequently opening fake emails or phishing websites, or they're trying to open executables from untrusted sources. But this is on the go right now. It's part of the roadmap. All right. What are the steps to deploy Kikimora in an organization, Kikimora agent in an organization? So there are two different types of agents. The first one is the AI agent. Right now, Kikimora is SaaS-based, but also for the enterprise version, we provide on-premise one. The SaaS version, you just go to agentic.kikimora.io, you sign up. It takes like less than 2 minutes. And for the on-premise version, you need a couple of containers and just a Linux box. It's not very resource consuming. It's not resource heavy, so it's quite easy to implement. When it comes to the agents, the endpoint agents, basically you need to deploy the agents on each one of the target systems. You can either use an automation tool for this, or you can manually deploy each agent on the target system. But as you saw, without the agents being connected to the management, you cannot collect information from the endpoints. It's quite easy to set up. Just one important note: if you want to identify the attack surface in your company, make sure to register with your domain name. For example, if I would like to analyze the attack surface for kikimora.io, I need to register with my Kikimora email address. That's implemented for fraud prevention. So if I'm trying to scan domain names which do not belong to me, I would not be able to. It would not let me. I need to register with the email address associated with the domain. All right. I will be happy to answer any other questions. Also, you can give me some insight how you're coping with the cybersecurity vulnerabilities. I'm quite interested to hear if you guys have some, let's say, more innovative way, or if you have a better approach. I'm happy to discuss. Okay, I see no more questions are present. Thank you for the attention. Thank you for being with me. And as I said, you can find me on LinkedIn. We can continue the cybersecurity discussion. I would be happy to continue the conversation. Wishing you a great evening or a great day, depending on where you're connecting from, and hope to see you soon.